Live performances can be electric experiences, partly because so much could go wrong. In these worst-case scenarios, everything went wrong for these unfortunate celebs.
These entertainers showed up to their gigs utterly smashed, and you won't believe what happened next. In 1978, the band formerly known as Jefferson Airplane had become Jefferson Starship, and vocalist Grace Slick, who was well known to enjoy a cocktail or 14, usually had no problem holding it together.
So you were a real enthusiastic drinker, I mean...
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. But, I have to correct you again, I was the only one who was enthusiastic about it.
I see.
But during a tour of Europe in support of their album Earth, the band decided to make a few stops in Germany, and as author Jeff Tamarkin remarked in the band's biography, Slick always had a thing about Germany. All things Deutsche brought out the worst in her. Slick reportedly warmed up by drinking literally all the alcohol she could get her hands on, throwing a giant tantrum and refusing to get ready for the show. By the time she was dragged on stage, she was so well lubricated that she mockingly asked the locals, "Who won the war?" The stunt resulted in Slick's dismissal from the band. She would return several years later, but she says, looking back,
"When you're old, you should be heard and not seen. When you're young, you should be seen and not heard, because you're kind of dumb when you're young because you don't know anything."
If you're unfamiliar with The Who's legendary late drummer Keith Moon, you really only need to know two things. He ruled the drums, and he embodied pure debauchery.
It was just, sort of drunken night at the Whiskey A Go-Go in Los Angeles. I mean, only one, I didn't do it every night.
His appetite for drugs and drink was considered completely insane even by other rock stars, yet he could still play hours-long sets like a beast. That is until a San Francisco gig in November 1973. According to Rolling Stone, Moon had popped what he assumed were run-of-the-mill tranquilizers, chasing them with brandy, but they may have instead been tranquilizers of the horse variety. In the middle of performing Won't Get Fooled Again, Moon began to wind down like a cheap clock. He was dragged off stage and thrown in a cold shower, or injected with cortisone depending on whom you ask, and brought back out to attempt Magic Bus, only to pass out on his kit. In a last-ditch effort to finish the show, guitarist Pete Townsend asked the crowd,
"Can anybody play the drums?"
19-year-old fan Scott Halpin got the chance to play on stage for the last few songs.
You feel a little better now, Keith?
Well, yeah, I've been sluggish and depressed lately, but that seems to have done the trick.
Poison was one of the more respectable bands of the hair metal era, with their supremely catchy tunes and wild stage antics earning them legions of spandex-clad, freaky-haired fans. Guitarist C.C. DeVille was the guy who knew how to put on a show, except during the 1991 MTV Video Music Awards, when he forgot what to play and how to play it, because he was also a guy who liked to do a lot of cocaine.
Make no mistake, I mean, I went down that road of alcohol and things like that.
First, DeVille launched into the band's hit Unskinny Bop, the song they were supposed to play later, then quit and waited for host Arsenio Hall to tell them what to do. He then launched into the ironically titled Let It Play, which he wasn't supposed to play, as lead singer Bret Michaels prompted DeVille to start Talk Dirty to Me. Michaels brushed off the awful performance by proclaiming,
"It ain't perfect, but it's rock and roll."
Then Michaels followed DeVille backstage and fired the hell out of him. DeVille would later return to the band. Singer Amy Winehouse famously had a massive hit song about not wanting to go to rehab.
What makes me crazy? Alcohol doesn't do nice things to me. I'm quite a horrible drunk. Quite a horrible drunk, actually.
During what would have been her comeback tour shortly before her passing, The Telegraph reported that Winehouse had infuriated fans by showing up to a gig in Belgrade, Serbia, utterly plastered, despite the fact that she was banned from drinking on the tour. She greeted the crowd with "Hello, Athens," which is not a city in Serbia, before launching into a mumbling, incoherent set, alternately falling over, sitting down, and wandering off stage. The 20,000 or so in attendance were not amused. It would unfortunately be Winehouse's final performance, but even so, she remains a legend, a fact of which there is plenty of proof.
People know that I don't really do what I'm told to do, or that I don't really care enough about what people think of me to conform to anything.
Creed frontman Scott Stapp may be sober these days, but in years past he was known to arrive at gigs looking like he had fallen into a pool of booze and drank his way out.
And I remember waking up one day and feeling something's wrong with me. That's when I began to self-medicate.
One show in Chicago 2002 was so bad that, according to MTV News, a group of fans actually filed a lawsuit against the band for cheating them out of a real show. The court filing stated that Stapp was so intoxicated and/or medicated that he was unable to sing the lyrics of a single Creed song. He left the stage and appeared to pass out while on stage during the performance. While the lawsuit was eventually thrown out, the debacle was the beginning of the end for Creed, which broke up in 2004.
Billy Joel and Elton John hit the road together in 2002 and took their piano-fueled show to Madison Square Garden in New York City. Fans had been forewarned to not expect Joel at his best because he had a cold, but that couldn't explain Joel's behavior. Like when he went off on a weird rant where he made fun of the Liberty Bell for having a crack in it, and then yelled out the names of major World War II battles. When the music eventually continued, Joel was clearly compromised. According to the New York Times, when he slumped forward on his bench and slurred, don't try to save me, he sounded truly hopeless. As he wailed, he banged on his keys almost at random. When John returned for a double piano presentation of Benny and the Jets, Joel banged on the keys nonsensically, and John visibly mouthed the words, "Thank God," at its conclusion. In June 2002, Joel entered a rehab facility. Green Day may have reached commercial heights with power ballads like Boulevard of Broken Dreams, but deep down they're still a band of punks. Billy Joe Armstrong and Company played the iHeart Radio Festival in Las Vegas in September 2012. While the band played its 1994 hit Basket Case, a message flashed up on a monitor informing Armstrong that he had just 1 minute left of stage time. That awakened a righteous fury deep inside Armstrong, who cut Basket Case short to deliver a remarkably profane rant to a bewildered crowd.
I've been around since 1988, and you're gonna give me 1 minute? You gotta be kidding me!
Armstrong then declared that he wasn't Justin Bieber and decided to show organizers what he could do with that minute. He smashed his guitar and stormed off the stage. According to Rolling Stone, Armstrong, who was reportedly blackout drunk when he went out on stage that night, entered rehab soon after. Motley Crue lead singer Vince Neil drank profuse amounts of alcohol up until the night in 1984 when he crashed a car while driving drunk, killing his passenger, Hanoi Rocks drummer Razzle. Neil checked into a rehab facility but has struggled with sobriety, seeking professional help more than once. In June 2006, Neil was off the wagon when he took the stage for a solo show in Tampa, Florida. According to an eyewitness account published by Blabbermouth, Neil was already, quote, smashed when his set started. He stumbled around the stage and couldn't seem to remember any lyrics. When the crowd started to boo, Neil yelled at them to shut up and went backstage. His band brought out singer John Corabi, who was briefly Neil's replacement in Motley Crue. Neil followed him out and staggered around the stage for a few more minutes. A few days after the fact, Neil told the Calgary Sun, "I was pretty buzzed. I tripped, fell off the stage. Sometimes it happens." Doors frontman Jim Morrison's booze-soaked stage shenanigans are well documented, according to Ultimate Classic Rock. During a European tour in 1968, the band was playing a gig in Amsterdam with Jefferson Airplane and apparently did all of the drugs and drank as much booze as possible. Morrison took the stage during Jefferson Airplane's set and danced around for a little while before collapsing into a pile and passing out. As he was carted off to the hospital, the show went on, with their keyboardist taking over on vocals. After playing just 4 songs at Headliners, a club in Toledo, Ohio, all the members of Puddle of Mudd who were not frontman Wes Scantlin walked off the stage. What happened? According to MTV News, Scantlin admitted that he was, quote, too to perform. Not taking the hint from his bandmates, the singer and guitarist remained on stage, and for an agonizing and bizarre half hour, he staggered around, swore profusely, insulted the audience, dodged stuff thrown at him by the hostile crowd, dropped his guitar, and sang songs that he reportedly seemed to be making up on the spot. Finally, Scantlin threw in the towel and headed to his dressing room backstage. Apparently, his show was so terrible that it was illegal. Toledo police arrested Scantlin on a misdemeanor count of disorderly conduct. He was released after paying a $150 bond. A few days later, Scantlin told MTV News, "I just got a little too buzzed to play my guitar and sing at the same time."
They say that rock and roll will never die, but playing it on stage could very well leave you with lots of aches and pains that will nag you for the rest of your life. The same goes for other genres as well. Just ask these legendary rockers, pop stars, and other performers. The music biz is dangerous. The artist was well known for his amazing live shows, but in his younger years, he really cut loose. Prince often wore high-heeled shoes while performing, and despite his choice of impractical footwear, he often jumped around, causing undue stress to his joints. In the mid-'80s, his protege Sheila E. joined him during his Purple Rain tour as an opening act, and later told the press that even back then, Prince was in constant pain. In the years that followed, he was sometimes spotted limping or even riding a motorized scooter to get around while out on tour. He was reportedly using opioids to manage his chronic pain during his later years, and his reliance on drugs got so bad that he turned to addiction specialists to beat his habit mere days before his body was found on April 21st, 2016. Frank Zappa, one of rock's greatest and most prolific eccentrics, suffered from chronic back pain after a bizarre incident during a performance at London's Rainbow Theatre on December 10, 1971. As he and his band began a jokey cover of the Beatles' I Wanna Hold Your Hand, a man in the crowd turned violent, jumping on stage after flying into a rage, then shoved Zappa into the theater's orchestra pit. The man attempted to flee, but was apprehended by members of the crowd. As he later explained, the man wasn't angry that Zappa was mocking one of Britain's most beloved rock groups, but rather that his girlfriend had admitted she had a crush on Zappa. The incident landed Zappa in a wheelchair for almost a year, and reportedly, his crushed larynx caused his voice to drop an octave. Many performers have fallen off stages over the years, but luckily, most escape with nothing more than a bruised ego. Unfortunately, that isn't the case for everyone.
I think I really broke my leg.
Just ask Patti Smith, who teamed up with Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band for a show in Tampa in 1977. Smith was known for her wild performances back then, which often included lots of twirling. But for this show, the stage crew didn't leave her with much space to work with, so she made do with what little room she had. But when her foot hit a stage monitor during the show, she was sent tumbling over the side of the dimly lit stage. Smith fell 15 feet into the orchestra pit, broke vertebrae in her neck, and fractured her spine. She still suffers from neck pain, but as she told the Houston Chronicle in 2012, it's nothing I can't live with. In 2017, after the second of 4 shows in front of audiences of nearly 100,000 fans at London's Wembley Stadium, Adele realized something wasn't quite right. She had struggled during the first 2 nights and kept having to clear her throat. She saw her doctor, who told her she'd badly damaged her vocal cords and should cancel the last 2 shows at Wembley, which were meant to serve as the finale of her record-setting tour. Sadly, she'd experienced a similar problem when she suffered a hemorrhage after singing live on a French radio show in 2011 and underwent a very risky vocal cord microsurgery. The King of Pop was a legendary performer, but 2 onstage incidents left him long-lasting injuries and pain. In January 1984, while performing on stage at the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles for a Pepsi commercial, he was dancing along to his hit single Billie Jean when he got too close to a pyrotechnic display, setting his jacket and hair on fire. Someone ran onto the stage, threw him to the floor, and extinguished the blaze, but not before he sustained 2nd and 3rd degree burns on his face and scalp. He was also left with a series of painful migraines that persisted long after his treatment was completed. Jackson suffered another injury in 1999 after falling over 30 feet while performing Earth Song at a concert in Munich. He was raised into the air on a bridge that then unexpectedly dropped back to the stage. Jackson managed to get back on his feet and finish the show, but he reportedly collapsed backstage afterward. The incident reportedly left him with chronic back pain that often flared up when he was suffering from mental or physical stress. Sid Wilson, the turntablist for Slipknot, was once known for his crazy onstage behavior, which included being set on fire and doing impressive jumps off the stage and other structures. On July 9, 2008, the band was performing at the Rockstar Energy Mayhem Festival in Auburn, Washington, playing their newest single, Psychosocial, for the first time in front of an audience. Wilson jumped off a platform on the back of the stage while wearing a 40-pound costume and landed wrong, shattering both heels. It put him in a wheelchair, but that didn't stop him from continuing to play.
I've been continuing the tour with broken heels.
He continues to have occasional foot trouble though, most recently in 2015, putting an end to many of his onstage antics. Grabbing drones while they're in mid-flight is dangerous. Spanish heartthrob Enrique Iglesias learned this lesson the hard way when he grabbed one equipped with a camera during a performance in Tijuana, Mexico on May 30th, 2015. It was a big mistake, even though he'd done this during prior shows. That night, his hand got a little too close to the drone's spinning blades. They sliced open one of his palms, fracturing his hand in the process. Iglesias wrapped his hand in a t-shirt and left the stage. He later had reconstructive surgery, but told Univision that he no longer has any feeling in one of his fingers.
The Show Must Go On is the name of a fantastic Queen song, but it can be a difficult motto for some acts to actually follow. Sometimes bands' concerts have technical difficulties, and other times performers have personal problems. Here are some musicians who stormed off stage during live shows. In 1992, flaming mayhem ensued in Montreal after a concert co-headlined by Metallica and Guns N' Roses, a band notorious for triggering riots. It all started when Metallica frontman James Hetfield was injured during a pyrotechnic mishap and had to go to the hospital. As a result, Metallica had to call it a night far earlier than planned, leaving their follow-up act with a choice to make. Guns N' Roses could either start their set early or make the already bummed-out crowd just wait. They chose the latter option, making the crowd wait for them for over 2 hours. For whatever reason, GNR's notoriously thorny vocalist Axl Rose just didn't want to be there. For one, he's rumored to have thought cities that started with the letter M brought bad juju, a fear probably reinforced by Hetfield being injured at a show in Montreal. He also reportedly had issues with the equipment, though he didn't ask for a roadie's help in solving his problems. Instead, after 9 songs, he abruptly exited the stage, no doubt wishing someone would get him out of Canada and take him directly down to Paradise City. His bandmates were bewildered, but rightly surmised that he wouldn't return to the stage, so they left too.
We had just stopped the tour because I had throat problems. Came back and I realized I'm going to hurt myself. Right. I told Slash 2 more songs. If we can't get it fixed, I got to go.
Outraged concert goers then tried to take out their frustrations by bringing Montreal to its knees. An estimated 10,000 people rioted by looting stores, starting fires, and overturning police cars. Lil Wayne may not always make the best decisions, but he's a pretty smart dude all the same. As a child, he was a straight-A student, and he established himself as a grade-A rapper at age 12. He nearly threw it all away, though, when he accidentally shot himself in the chest. But instead of dying trying, he survived and thrived. Now, Lil Wayne is a hip-hop institution, but if he can't stand somebody, he might just go after them mid-concert. In 2015, Wayne took aim at his former record label Cash Money and its owner, Birdman, who discovered and mentored him. Wayne sued for $51 million because the company allegedly withheld money from him. He also roasted Birdman and Company in the song Coco Freestyle. He wanted to perform that track during a gig at Florida's Nova Southeastern University, but the DJ accidentally played the OT Genesis song Coco. So Wayne responded with great vengeance and furious anger, cursing at the DJ and chucking his microphone before running off stage. Marilyn Manson's gimmick has always seemed meticulously designed to antagonize. He needles mainstream society with album titles like Antichrist Superstar and album covers like the one for Mechanical Animals that features him as a naked androgynous alien. He mocked the image-driven fickleness of fame in songs like The Dope Show, while simultaneously gaining fame with his own carefully constructed image. But while his persona feeds off others' psychological discomfort, sometimes the more prickly person he really is underneath has peeked through. In 1999, Manson abandoned a show reportedly after discovering someone had placed a smiley face on a stage prop. After he angrily rushed off the stage, unruly concertgoers swarmed his tour bus, fought police officers, and committed trespassing, leading to 23 arrests. Fast forward to 2018. This time, Manson was on the mend after a different prop-related incident when a gun-shaped stage prop he was climbing on fell down on him, fracturing his leg in 2 places. He was still wearing a cast when he returned to the stage months later, but he unexpectedly left that stage after just a few songs, allegedly because he felt a lack of love from his fans. Witnesses say he kept demanding applause and seemed incoherent. Many in the crowd felt cheated, while others simply worried about his health. Mariah Carey has compared herself to the prim and proper Mary Poppins, and it's not hard to understand why. Though she doesn't travel via magical umbrella, her voice is like a spoonful of sugar, and that dynamic vocal range has made her a megastar among megastars. She has more hits to her name than some professional boxers. So when ABC wanted a musical heavy hitter for Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve with Ryan Seacrest on December 31, 2016, Carey seemed like a sure bet to knock the show out of the park. Unfortunately, technical difficulties rained on her parade. After a rendition of Auld Lang Syne, Carey tried to sing her Grammy Award-winning hit song Emotions, but she couldn't hit the right notes, and she seemed to be at a loss for lyrics. The exasperated singer explained to the audience that a proper sound check hadn't been conducted. Equipment problems reduced her to dancing in small bursts and seemingly trying not to explode. A third song brought another malfunction, so Carey walked off, and ABC kicked off 2017 by dropping the ball twice. Oasis's hit song Wonderwall is, according to a quote from Noel Gallagher, about an imaginary friend who's going to come and save you from yourself. If that friend really existed, maybe they would have been the one to save Noel from his brother and bandmate Liam Gallagher, who infamously bashed Noel on the head with a tambourine mid-concert. And that's just the start of it. The brothers Gallagher often fought as bandmates, and Liam clashed with everyone, including, and perhaps especially, the fans at Oasis concerts. Liam has walked out on shows more times than we can count, with one instance in Glasgow in 1997 leading to a violent revolt. The band had just finished playing Wonderwall when someone lobbed a bottle, hitting bassist Paul Bonehead Arthurs and prompting the band to storm off. Enraged fans rushed onto the stage and broke windows. Then, in 2000, Liam angered a Swiss crowd at a festival. The singer hurled insults at the crowd, and the suddenly not-so-neutral Swiss started hurling bottles and cans their way. So, Oasis took a short break, only to return, then leave for good after 2 more songs. And in 2017, a post-Oasis Liam bailed on a concert again, blaming unspecified voice problems. However, many assumed he'd reacted to a pro-Noel Gallagher sign in the crowd. Hoping to save the performance, fans reportedly chanted, "Noel." Psychologists disagree on whether mental illness is a key ingredient of genius, but some studies and anecdotal evidence suggest a link. One person who certainly seems to believe in the connection is rapper and producer Kanye West, whose albums The Life of Pablo and Ye have been explicit about his own mental struggles and triumphs in recent years. A man of many extremes, West has reportedly been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which is somewhat fitting since he's a generally polarizing figure. His songs and artistic persona are full of bold claims and contradictions. He once accused President George W. Bush of not caring about black people on live television. Years later, under President Trump, he put on the red hat and started ranting that slavery, quote, sounds like a choice. And when it comes to performing, he takes plenty of time to go on off-the-wall tirades, sometimes working himself up to the point that he abruptly leaves the stage. In 2016, during the height of both a contentious presidential contest and a rollicking album rollout, Kanye went off during a concert in Sacramento. He had gotten through 2 songs before he began criticizing Hillary Clinton, and he also accused Beyoncé of pulling strings to win the 2016 MTV Award for Video of the Year, for which West was also nominated. And he implored her husband Jay-Z not to have him assassinated. Afterward, he stormed off stage. The concert ended after 30 minutes. The lyrics to Puddle of Mudd's 2001 single Control read like a rough draft of 50 Shades of Grey the musical. There's a bunch of butt-smacking, chains, and an unhealthy-sounding romantic dynamic premised on domination. So it's a tad ironic that vocalist Wes Scantlin, who co-wrote the song, has a love affair with handcuffs that seems to be built on a lack of self-control. Scantlin's been arrested for a variety of erratic shenanigans, including attacking a neighbor's patio with a buzzsaw, riding a luggage carousel at Denver International Airport, and vandalizing a home he previously owned. In 2016, he had a 2-hour standoff with more than 30 police officers during which he brandished a rifle. That same year, Scantlin also had a one-sided showdown at a concert in Ohio. Things were going surprisingly handcuff-free when he halted mid-gig to spew profanities at a random man in the crowd, whom he accused of the hard-to-commit crime of stealing Scantlin's house. Then the angry singer walked away. In 2017, he stormed off again while performing She Hates Me in Dallas, glaring at drummer Dave Moreno before leaving in a huff. English singer-songwriter Peter Frampton has delighted audiences over the years with romantic classics like Baby I Love Your Way and Show Me the Way. His much-beloved 1976 live album, Frampton Comes Alive, rocketed up the charts to become the best-selling album of all time before the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack surpassed it. People cherish Frampton Comes Alive so much that a copy of the album briefly upstaged the actual live Frampton, and he didn't take it very well. In 2017, Frampton was performing at Treasure Island Resort and Casino in Red Wing, Minnesota. Alas, a cameraman ruined his mood by filming a member of the crowd. A woman held up a copy of Frampton Comes Alive, which showed up on the video screens. The roughly 8,000-person crowd unleashed roars of approval, interrupting Frampton's guitar solo. Then the camera focused on the cover of the woman's copy of I'm in You. A visibly vexed Frampton leaned into the camera and let out an expletive. According to one eyewitness, the fuming musician got into a, quote, camera tug-of-war with the cameraman before leaving the stage. Then the video screens went black, but Frampton ultimately returned to the stage after he had the screens shut off completely, and he even threw in an encore song to boot. Indie pop rocker Rufus Wainwright wears his politics on his sleeve. He uses his music in fundraising efforts to oppose Republican politicians and makes politically charged songs like Going to a Town, which contains the line, "I'm so tired of you, America." He later used the song as a critique of Donald Trump. So when he performed it with the Minnesota Orchestra in December 2017, the audience likely wasn't surprised that he slammed a GOP vote on tax legislation, remarking, "We have to fight for this country." However, this bit of political grandstanding was an unpleasant surprise to Manny Laureano, the orchestra's chief trumpeter, who later wrote in a blog post that he knew practically nothing about Wainwright before taking on the gig. The Star Tribune reported that Laureano stood up and, quote, swung his arm in an exasperated gesture, put his horn down, and walked off. Laureano called this characterization an exaggeration, but acknowledged leaving in protest. He considered Wainwright to be, quote, angry and self-indulgent. He also said he deemed his comments unacceptable during a time meant for togetherness. Laureano also expressed his frustration during a radio appearance, saying, "This was not an inclusive moment."
The Doors frontman Jim Morrison owned every stage he ever set foot on. But he wasn't just a simple showman. His performances were always opportunities to experiment. As he once said, "I am interested in anything about revolt, disorder, chaos, especially activity that seems to have no meaning. It seems to me to be the road toward freedom." Morrison wanted his listeners to shatter boundaries and inhibitions, but he broke a boundary in a different way in New Orleans on December 12, 1970, the night of his final live performance with the Doors. He technically didn't storm off the stage. Instead, he stormed through it. As Doors keyboardist Ray Manzarek described it, Morrison's spirit exited his body as he reportedly smashed a hole in the stage with his mic stand before walking off stage. Then he just sat down on stage and didn't get up. This all happened less than a year before Morrison's untimely death at the age of 27 in July 1971. Madonna is no stranger to blowing up, whether that's with a hit single or a profanity-laden rant. Some of her most notorious moments include her disastrous interview with David Letterman in 1994, or fighting lawsuits from angry fans for starting her concerts hours late. Considering all that, it should come as no surprise that the Queen of Pop has threatened to stop a show on more than one occasion, the most memorable case being in Santiago, Chile in 2012. Madonna was approaching the end of her MDNA tour, which had become one of the highest grossing of all time by the end of that year. But she couldn't help but get hung up before this particular show even began, as she reportedly spotted a group of smokers in the audience during her soundcheck and stopped mid-song. She then said, "No smoking. If you're going to smoke cigarettes, I'm not doing a show. You don't care about me, I don't care about you, all right? Are we going to play that game? I'm not kidding. I can't sing if you smoke." After the group seemingly ignored Madonna's plea, she then stormed off stage. Things didn't exactly improve from there, as the performance began 2 hours late in a torrential downpour, only to eventually end 40 minutes early. Before he decided to stop touring in 2023, Art Garfunkel had maintained some modest success as a legacy act outside of his chart-topping partnership with Paul Simon, but he also faced some serious bumps in the road, most notably an injury that almost caused him to lose his voice. In 2010, he was forced to indefinitely delay an entire summer reunion tour with Simon, as well as several of his own solo shows. 3 years later, he had recovered to the point that he was ready to play small concerts again, which included an acoustic set at the Great Neck Arts Center in Long Island, New York. Dubbed an intimate rehearsal, the show was an invite-only 2-night event that came with a few unexpected moments. As reported by Page Six, a woman was so overtaken by excitement at seeing Garfunkel live that she fainted and was escorted out of the venue by stretcher. As if that weren't enough excitement, Garfunkel then left the stage soon afterwards when someone in the front row struggled to turn off his cell phone after it began buzzing. He apologized shortly afterwards to the singer, who did eventually return to the stage to finish the set a few minutes later. Fort Collins, Colorado is home to the annual Taste of Fort Collins, a 2-day food and music festival that features both local artists and international headliners. In 2015, the musical lineup included Smash Mouth. The event also welcomed Bimbo Bakeries USA, who were giving out free slices of bread to attendees. This reportedly resulted in several of those slices being flung at the stage during Smash Mouth's set during both days of the festival. According to the festival organizer, Smash Mouth frontman Steve Harwell left the stage toward the end of his band set on the second day and was told that an announcement would be made requesting that people stop throwing bread. However, before they could say anything, Harwell barreled back on stage and began threatening audience members in a 3-minute rant before the show's encore. Things got so intense that he began making his way toward the crowd, ready to pick a fight. After he was restrained by a security guard, his bandmates started playing their final song, All Star, and Harwell eventually calmed down and sang along with the crowd.
I don't see Smash Mouth anywhere!
In 2013, Selena Gomez was fully ready to break free of her Disney origins. Her show Wizards of Waverly Place had just ended, and she cut ties with her band The Scene to go solo. She also released the chart-topping single Come and Get It, as well as her first #1 album, Star Stance. Then, a moment towards the end of the year would fully remove the Disney gloss, though probably not in the way she intended. Gomez was on the bill at that year's Jingle Ball, an annual holiday concert hosted by Kiss FM in Los Angeles. It's a major moment for any artist, so it wasn't exactly surprising when Gomez became visibly upset when her microphone and earpiece were malfunctioning right from the start of her set. Not only did it reveal that she was lip-syncing, but she was also heard angrily dropping an F-bomb. She attempted some self-deprecating humor to appease the audience, many of whom were young fans, and she promised to perform 2 more songs. However, she instead dropped her microphone and walked off stage. Some old wounds were reopened for rock star Courtney Love when a fan held up a picture of her late husband Kurt Cobain during a concert in 2011. As reported by NME, Love was playing with her band Hole at Brazil's Starts With You Music and Arts Festival. After catching a glimpse of the photo, she said, "I don't need to see a picture of Kurt. I have to live with his and his ghost and his kid every day, and throwing that up is stupid and rude, and I'm going to beat the out of you if you do it again." Love then stormed off stage, though she eventually returned after her guitarist convinced the audience to chant, "The Foo Fighters are gay." Dave Grohl, the Foo Fighters frontman, was one of Cobain's Nirvana bandmates. Love and Grohl's relationship has been fraught over the years following contentious litigation over their shared ownership of Nirvana's estate. As she explained in an interview following the show, Dave makes $5 million a show. He doesn't need the money. Don't say you like the Foo Fighters in front of me or I will walk off stage.
We used to really like each other, and then there was 20 years where we sued each other.
As a young heartthrob, Justin Bieber won over legions of fans with songs like Baby and Boyfriend. But he also got himself into a lot of trouble with a series of DUI and assault charges. In the process, he became known as less of a teen idol and more of a bad boy prone to erratic behavior. Then, in 2015, his rebrand into more introspective EDM-influenced music was marred by a blow-up on stage in Oslo, Norway. As reported by Norwegian news agency NTB, Bieber was performing a set that was scheduled to air on Norwegian TV when he handed a bottle of water to an excitable fan in the front row. When she accidentally spilled some of it on the stage, Bieber quickly grabbed a hoodie to wipe it up. Though it's difficult to fully make out from the video that was circulated online, it appears that the fans were trying to grab him or his hoodie. They continued to do so even after Bieber asked them to stop, and then he stormed off stage. Despite the crowd's attempts to send their love with their own rendition of Baby, the singer never returned to the stage. He did, however, apologize on Instagram the next day. It's tough to strike out on your own as a solo artist, and it's even tougher when you've already agreed to get back together with your once-in-a-generation alt-rock band. Just ask Smashing Pumpkins frontman Billy Corgan. After his first Pumpkins offshoot, Zwan, broke up, he was ready to go solo in 2005 with his electronica debut, The Future Embrace. But then he took out full-page ads in both the Chicago Tribune and the Chicago Sun-Times on the album's release day to celebrate his new labor of love by announcing that he intended to return to his original band. Then, 1 month later, at a solo show in Melbourne, Australia, fans heckled Corgan to play some Smashing Pumpkins songs. As reported by Australian outlet Undercover, the crowd was shouting things like, "Play some Pumpkins" and "We want rock." Corgan responded by suggesting that they get their money back if they were dissatisfied with his shoegaze stylings. The requests wouldn't stop, though, leading Corgan to drop an F-bomb into the mic and leave the stage. The fans eventually got what they wanted, as the Pumpkins would release their first reunion album 2 years later.
It was nice to kind of get back there and sort of remember where we came from.
It's one thing to take a photo of an artist during a live concert. It's quite another when they offer to take your phone and snap a custom selfie. It's a unique but growing trend in live music that presents incredible risks, but also incredible rewards, which means that entitled fans will reap it for all it's worth. Some artists have even been hit with phones during shows. and one fan really escalated the trend during a Steve Lacy concert in 2022. Lacy was performing in New Orleans when a disposable camera was flung onto the stage. It grazed his chest and then went back into the audience. The entire incident was captured in a video that was posted on social media. Lacy then stopped the concert mid-song, retrieved the camera, and proceeded to destroy it by throwing it to the ground. He then quickly exited the stage, had the culprit kicked out, and returned to complete the set. Despite some criticism that he had acted entitled, Lacy adamantly defended himself in a since-deleted Instagram post, as he insisted, "I don't believe I owe anyone an apology." Towards the end of a June 2016 show in Charleston, South Carolina, Death Cab for Cutie were performing their hit song Soul Meets Body when frontman Ben Gibbard suddenly threw his mic down and stormed off stage. The moment was recorded by a fan and posted to YouTube, and it felt very out of character for a musician as laid back as Gibbard. But the real story was what was happening offstage. As bassist Nick Harmer later explained to Billboard, "It was the last 20 seconds of the last song, and all of Ben's equipment failed at the exact kind of unrelated moment. There was a giant fight in front of us. It's kind of scary, so we stop as a band thinking somebody's hurt or something's happening." In the video, Gibbard can be seen pulling out his earpiece and dropping his guitar in frustration, after which drummer Jason McGurr stops mid-song to point out the commotion in the crowd. All of this culminates in Gibbard lashing out, which was followed by security stepping in to end the fight. The band eventually completed the set with an encore, but the entire moment was still a shock. Harmer also cited anxiety following the Deadly Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando as part of what influenced their decision to stop the show. If you're being pelted with water, hopefully it's because you're on an amusement park ride or sliding down a slip and slide. But it shouldn't happen to someone who's on the bill of the Red Bull Music Academy Tour in Glasgow, Scotland. Alas, that was what happened to rapper Danny Brown in 2015, who was performing an a cappella run when a deluge of water hit him from the crowd. The whole incident was captured on video, though it's unclear whether Brown was hit with a water bottle or a cup of water. Either way, it was enough for him to immediately throw the mic to the ground and leave the stage, never to return, as he reportedly swore that he would never play at Glasgow again after the incident. A lot of people were quick to hate on the culprit, a drunk man in his early or mid-20s who was promptly escorted out of the venue. However, some were also quick to criticize Brown. As one of the concert attendees said to the Glasgow Times, "Danny Brown can rap about drugs and guns, but he can't take a pint of water?" And as another put it on social media, "Danny Brown leaving the show because he gets a drink thrown at him? Mate, that's a Glasgow christening. You're a citizen now."
Sometimes I lose, sometimes I win.
Azalea Banks and the country of Australia don't exactly get along with each other. Their feud began back in 2012 when Banks performed a measly 25-minute set at the Byron Bay-based Splendor in the Grass Music Festival, as she cited faulty equipment. She was quite apologetic at the time, promising that she'd come back for another go. And sure enough, she did. But it didn't go quite so smoothly. At the 2013 Future Music Festival in Melbourne, Banks started some Twitter beef with British rock band the Stone Roses by claiming that they sabotaged her set. Later that same year, she headlined the Listen Out Festival, where she was hit by a drink 15 minutes into the Sydney leg of her performance. Needless to say, the music ended right then and there. The final straw came when another drink was thrown at Banks, this time a full can of beer, only 90 seconds into her set at Listen Out's Melbourne stint. The entire incident was captured on video, where Banks can be seen throwing her mic and storming off after the item lands on stage. She kind of apologized the next day in a since-deleted post on social media, but she didn't exactly display remorse. As she put it, "The can definitely didn't hit me, and I definitely still got paid. More press, please, and thank you." Banks' wish was granted 2 years later when she finally completed a set at Splendor in the Grass, though she later called Aussie audiences terrible crowds who were violent and belligerent. Fiona Apple once told Rolling Stone, "When I have something to say, I'll say it." That attitude was plenty clear during a Louis Vuitton party in Tokyo in 2013. The event was celebrating the fashion staple's latest exhibition, entitled Timeless Muses. The music there essentially amounted to background noise, but that didn't sit well with Apple, who quickly grew frustrated with the audience's chatter. It probably didn't help that the noise was likely bouncing back and forth against the walls of the night's venue, the glamorous but high-ceilinged Tokyo Station Hotel. Apple reportedly at one point stood atop her piano and asked the audience to quiet down. She then struck a metal bell in an attempt to quiet them further, Other notable moments included hitting her head on her microphone, staring into the eyes of her guitarist, and backbending over the piano bench. None of this worked to shush the partygoers, so the chaos continued when Apple began cursing at the crowd. She angrily exited the stage shortly after, shortening her already compressed set. During a night themed around timeless muses, Apple certainly provided something that everyone there was unlikely to ever forget. Everyone loves deciphering a good mystery, but they don't usually come in the form of a rock concert ending abruptly. In 2012, however, there was a case of Jack White walking off less than an hour into a concert at Radio City Music Hall. There were numerous leads about why he left the stage, including a rowdy fan in the front row, ticket scalpers, and the fact that he reportedly wasn't happy with the sound. White himself at one point implied that it was about the energy of the audience, as he reportedly said, "Jesus Christ, is this an NPR convention?"
I hear it goes down at NPR conventions.
Months later, White told Rolling Stone, "The crowd's in complete control of me. I was just doing what they told me to do." Whatever the reason was, it didn't stop fans from responding in kind. After aimlessly waiting for the show's encore and even starting their own Seven Nation Army sing-along, the crowd mobbed the stage door to confront White. They even scolded him with statements like, "Jack White kills puppies," all the while banging on parked cars to get his attention. When a pizza delivery man arrived, fans were even more upset, eventually taking to social media to start the hashtag Jack White debacle. By the time he played a killer full show the next day, though, most of the outrage had effectively died down. The practice of throwing food in protest dates back centuries, and in 2013, someone was more than happy to keep the tradition going at a Lupe Fiasco concert. The rapper lived up to his last name while performing at Salt Lake City's The Depot, where a fan in the balcony hit him with a tomato. The moment was captured on video that was posted to YouTube. Fiasco stopped the show after he was hit and then announced if there was anyone else like that, then they needed to leave. He then proceeded to nastily insult the supposed culprit. Furthermore, Fiasco requested that the entire balcony be cleared to weed out the perpetrator, and security obliged. However, some rowdy fans in the section didn't want to evacuate. By the time that security had gotten their way, Fiasco had grown impatient and left the stage. It wasn't until the crew began breaking down the equipment that fans took the hint. For a man who got big on claiming that the show goes on, he certainly let this show go off the rails. What makes this story even odder is that, according to management, nothing at the Depot is served with tomatoes, which all begs the question, who exactly was bringing their own tomatoes to a rap concert in 2013?
Cheating happens in professional sports more than we'd like to admit, and with cameras everywhere, it's hard for athletes to get away scot-free, whether they've escaped official punishment or were ejected from the game. The following players were all caught ignoring the rules on live TV. Sammy Sosa's name will always be linked with Major League Baseball's steroid era, both because of his famous single-season home run record chase with fellow slugger Mark McGwire, and because he tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs in 2003. The perception exists that everybody did it back in Sosa's day, and the sports culture during the 1990s and early 2000s resulted in pitchers and hitters alike believing they had to use whatever possible to keep up. And Sosa wasn't just using performance-enhancing drugs. During the 2003 season, he was caught breaking a direct MLB rule after his bat shattered into multiple pieces during what otherwise would have been a routine ground out. Umpires quickly confiscated portions of his bat and determined that it had been corked. The umpire crew chief tossed Sosa for his crime, and MLB officials handed him an 8-game suspension that was later reduced to 7 following an appeal. Sosa bulking up his muscles with the help of consuming something other than spinach was one thing, but swinging a corked bat is completely different, and some will always wonder how often he used one while blasting home runs over the wall. Throughout his physical prime, LeBron James has been a top-tier athlete who often looked more like an NFL tight end than a basketball guard. He's never been the NBA's biggest player, but knocking him away from the basketball has always been quite the challenge. Few, if any, of his opponents can easily knock him to the floor, a fact that individuals working within the league's front office are aware of. With that in mind, in the fourth quarter of Game 4 of the 2013 Eastern Conference Finals, James and Indiana Pacers forward David West were fined for the rolls and a pair of flops on the same play. James attempted some sort of spin move before he dropped to the ground for reasons that defied gravity and physics, while West also exaggerated his response to minimal contact. Neither man obtained any real advantage from their theatrics. They merely lost $5,000 apiece for their efforts. It should come as no surprise to learn that such a minimal financial penalty hasn't prevented James from embellishing again since then. The 1993 Stanley Cup Finals began with the Los Angeles Kings defeating the Montreal Canadiens to win Game 1 on the road. Then in Game 2, the Kings held a 2-1 advantage with under 2 minutes to play when the Montreal bench called for the refs to inspect the stick belonging to LA defenseman Marty McSorley. Montreal claimed that the stick's curve was beyond what the NHL allowed at the time. As TV cameras zoomed in to the official measurement, everyone could see that McSorley was guilty of using an illegal stick.
And McSorley is crushed.
The officials sent McSorley to the penalty box, the Canadiens scored on the resulting power play to send the game into overtime, and then they won the game and the next 3 straight contests on their way to hoisting Lord Stanley's Cup. Joe Niekro was pitching for the Minnesota Twins in an August 1987 game against the California Angels when the home plate umpire asked for Niekro to return a baseball toward home plate. The umpiring crew then requested to inspect the pitcher's glove and for him to empty anything in his pockets. Niekro eventually reached into his right back pocket and attempted to toss an emery board onto the field unnoticed. The umpires did notice, though, and they awarded Niekro with an early trip to the showers. In the wake of the incident, Major League Baseball suspended Niekro for 10 games after he tried to explain that he used the board and sandpaper to file his nails between innings. In light of that excuse, we recommend that pitchers get midweek manicures on their days off.
No matter what they do, a public figure's fame can disappear in an instant. And for these actors, that instant happened on live TV. The 2022 Academy Awards could have been the greatest night in Will Smith's professional life. Instead of celebrating the victory of his first ever Oscar win, however, Smith's behavior that evening ensured the world will remember the ceremony for an entirely different reason. You may have witnessed the incident yourself, either when it unfolded live during the ceremony or in the subsequent media barrage. Host Chris Rock cracked a joke at the expense of Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett Smith. And Smith replied by walking up to Rock, slapping him in the face, striding back to his seat, and following up his physical assault with some explicit verbal threats. What's more, Smith couldn't just slink away from the ceremony afterwards. He was up for the Best Actor award, which he went on to win and proceeded to give a very awkward acceptance speech. As an Oscar-winning A-lister, Smith has kept working, and even if the screen roles dry up, he has his career as a producer to fall back on. Still, regardless of what the future holds for him, it's probably fair to say that the 2022 incident has severely tarnished his family-friendly image.
My behavior was unacceptable, and I'm here whenever you're ready to talk.
Not every Saturday Night Live performance is a winner, but Steven Seagal may have been the show's worst ever host. Seagal hosted One Fateful Show on April 20th, 1991, and did a legendarily awful job. He showcased zero sense of humor, acting ability, or basic cooperation skills, resulting in a humorless and uncomfortable affair. Seagal never returned to host, but has been imitated on the show multiple times. Being a horrible SNL host didn't immediately end the martial arts man's career, but it's clear that it was a pivotal moment in his timeline nonetheless. As the film critic Verne pointed out in his book, Seagology, 1991 marks the end of the star's so-called golden era. He still had a few successes lined up, including 1992's Under Siege. Still, not long after the SNL gig showcased Seagal's weirder side to the world, he stopped being an implacable action man as news about his more questionable traits started coming out. These days, Seagal is well known for allegations of him physically and sexually abusing colleagues, and the oft-reported tale about legendary martial artist Gene LeBell humiliating Seagal by choking him out so hard he soiled himself. As for his movie output, Seagal soon drifted into the land of straight-to-DVD, where he resides whenever he's not promoting Vladimir Putin in Russia. After comedian Jamie Kennedy broke through as Randy Meeks in 1996's Scream, he started turning up in movies alongside A-listers like Will Smith, Eddie Murphy, and George Clooney. He also had a sweet, varied TV career with projects like his own The Jamie Kennedy Experiment, the CBS supernatural procedural Ghost Whisperer, and the animated The Cleveland Show. Since around 2013, however, his roles have been mostly obscure. As it happens, there's a particular abysmal live TV event that coincides with his career trajectory. It's called First Night, and it was a 2012 New Year's Eve special hosted by Kennedy on California TV station KDOC. The event turned out to be so awful that it ended up going viral. It was a chaotic, troubled affair where few things worked. Kennedy and others often seemed out of their depth, and a brawl broke out at the closing moments, prompting the host to beg the viewers to go watch something else.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
In an interview with the New York Times, Kennedy insisted that the messiness was intentional. He explained, "It was totally supposed to be like that. We wanted to make almost an anti-New Year's Eve show, and the recipe calls for unexpected. We had an open bar for our guests. We were unrehearsed. It was not glamorous." He also expressed a wish to do similar specials in the future. However, this was the last night of First Night, and Kennedy has since focused on projects like straight-to-video Tremors sequels. Some of the most controversial Saturday Night Live skits have jumped headfirst into politics or various cultural issues. Charles Rocket, on the other hand, took a different route during SNL Season 6. The show's producer at the time, Gene Dumanian, had pegged him as the potential superstar of the season's cast, which is saying something. After all, the show had already featured comedians such as John Belushi, Chevy Chase, and Bill Murray. Funny enough, Rocket's new set of SNL co-stars also included Eddie Murphy, who went on to become pretty successful himself. Rocket never got the chance to become such an illustrious name. After ending a Dallas-themed sketch on the February 21, 1981 show by inserting a casual F-bomb in his final line, he promptly got fired.
That's the first time I've ever been shot in my life. I'd like to know who did it.
Dumanian's tenure with the show had already been troublesome, as she had produced what's considered to be one of the worst Saturday Night Live seasons ever. After Rocket's four-letter word, the executives had had enough. The producer and Rocket made their apologies and were soon shown the door. Rocket didn't stop acting. He became a TV journeyman with a laundry list of guest star stints and recurring roles. He even had roles in major films like Dances with Wolves and Dumb and Dumber. Still, his screen career was never even close to the heights of the SNL stars he was once compared to.